All right, welcome back to the channel. So, Deontay Wilder and Tyson Fury are supposed to have a rematch. The new date is supposed to be around October 3rd. Hopefully that'll be around the time, man. I cannot wait for that rematch. But there's some other people out there who can wait for the rematch and are calling on Deontay Wilder to step aside. Absolute foolishness, in my opinion. Or not foolishness, but just a dream that's not coming true, and one that shouldn't. But let's talk about that in this video. All right, welcome back to the channel. So, David Higgins, who is the the promoter, I guess, kind of promoter of Joseph Parker out of New Zealand, says that Deontay Wilder is doing a disservice to boxing by rematching, by forcing Tyson Fury into a rematch because the boxing world does not want to see that fight. Deontay Wilder's also made a bunch of excuses about the loss and just a bunch of other garbage this guy let fly out of his mouth. Dillian White also said something around that, but let's talk about that. First, David Higgins, again, is a promoter that works pretty much for, he's a promoter out of New Zealand. I do believe he's out of New Zealand. However, most of the fighters that I've seen with him fight, that I've seen him promote, have been, and really the only one that I've been seeing him promote lately is Joseph Parker, have been fighting on Matchroom cards. So he has, so basically his fighters are all serviced out to a bigger promoter, Matchroom Boxing and Eddie Hearn in the UK. But so he comes out and says, first thing he does is he talks about something again that it really irritates me, man, because people keep repeating this stuff about Deontay Wilder blaming the loss on Tyson Fury on headgear. And it's like people just keep repeating it and keep repeating it and keep repeating it. And no matter how many times you say that Deontay Wilder never said it, or you point out the fact that nobody actually has any audio of him saying that, and that he himself through 78 Sports TV and some other people let it be known that that wasn't what he said, that wasn't his intention, that somebody was standing around him and overheard something he was saying that wasn't intended to be on the record, misconstrued that, and then all of a sudden Deontay Wilder has this reputation for blaming a loss on his helmet. And so it was with that irritation in my mind that I started listening to what David Higgins had to say about Deontay Wilder not rematching Tyson Fury. First of all, there is this like ongoing celebration out there in the UK, or not the UK, just the anti-Deontay Wilder boxing world. And I think that it is fair to say that there is a lot of people at the forefront of the heavyweight division in boxing that for some reason just really have a foul taste in their mouth as it relates to Deontay Wilder. You could tell it for several years now, and they are pretty much in a state of jubilation and want to get rid of Deontay Wilder any way, shape, or form, any way they can. But unfortunately, there's a rematch clause in that contract that makes Tyson Fury have to rematch him. And there is so much money at stake that it makes Bob Arum, it would make Bob Arum resistant to the idea of trying to find a way to get Tyson Fury out of that fight. That fight was probably over $100 million fight. So when you have money that big and you have a rematch clause, that fight, that rematch is going to take place. But more importantly than just the fact that the rematch has to take place because of the money and because of the fact that Deontay Wilder has a rematch clause, and that's his right as a heavyweight heavyweight champion in a voluntary title defense, he has the right to go on ahead and get that rematch clause. And I find it really interesting that the same people that have an issue with Deontay Wilder rematching Tyson Fury had very little to say about Anthony Joshua forcing a rematch on Andy Ruiz. But before I get into the Andy Ruiz portion of it, a portion of the discussion. The fact that people keep thinking that one guy can win a fight, and then as soon as they win the fight, that there's no chance that the dude could lose again, that just flies in the face of the history of boxing. You have all kind of champions throughout the history of boxing where they lost one fight. They could have lost a fight by knockout and still have the ability to come back and win a fight in the rematch, especially when you're talking about somebody that has as much power as Deontay Wilder and somebody that has as shaky a chin as Tyson Fury. You can go back and then there's a part, if you guys, I'm not sure how many of you guys actually watch a lot of the legacy boxing channels on YouTube. And by that, I mean channels that really do focus on the history of boxing. Scrapbook Boxing is a great channel in that regard. Blood Boxing, through boxing, Retro Boxing and Documentaries is another really good guy with that. Story B Man has shows on it as well. But if you listen to Curtis Anderson, obviously is out there talking on a lot of different channels about the history of boxing, and history is replete with examples of fighters fighting each other 5, 6, 7, 8 times. You know, it's only like a recently modern thing where fighters where they only fight each other one time and that's it. Look at how many times Sugar Ray Robinson fought Jake LaMotta, right? Or how many times Henry Armstrong, I think he might only fought Harry Greb one time, but you get my point. There's a lot of fights in the early part of boxing that would happen over and over and over again, and the outcome would change depending on the fight. Because when you see somebody and you fight somebody a certain amount of times, you start getting familiar with them. And hey, man, anything can happen. And in the heavyweight division, that's especially the case because guys have the ability to knock somebody out, man. You know, you have to be nervous you really have to be nervous when you get into a rematch with a guy like Deontay Wilder, who has the ability to knock you out in one punch. Now, the same thing is with Tyson Fury as well. Tyson Fury is a very dangerous fighter, and he very well might win the rematch. But just because he won, first of all, Tyson Fury is 1-0-1 with Deontay Wilder, and he was very fortunate to get up and be in the situation to be in a rematch with Deontay Wilder. He was also very fortunate to be in the situation with a rematch with Deontay Wilder when he got his face cut open and opened up by Otto Wallin, which is something that could easily happen, that could easily take place again with Deontay Wilder and Tyson Fury. So, you know, the idea that these guys shouldn't rematch each other because the whole world wants to see Anthony Joshua and Tyson Fury seems a little bit funny to me. Also, the fact that even the notion that everybody wants to see the fight between Anthony Joshua and Tyson Fury seems a little bit funny to me because I'm not hearing very many people really outwardly calling for that fight anyway. It's not as if Anthony Joshua is some guy that has never lost and didn't get knocked out, didn't get knocked down 4 times and then quit up against the ropes against Andy Ruiz. Because of one return fight against Andy Ruiz where he moved around all over the place in Saudi Arabia, what about that fight makes Anthony Joshua look like some big undefeatable Hulk again? He doesn't. I don't see it. But hey, man, you know, if a certain promoter who gets most of his money fighting on Matchroom cards, says so, hey, man, maybe I should believe it. But back to the Andy Ruiz, Anthony Joshua thing. Do you recall anybody really pushing and saying that when Andy Ruiz beat Anthony Joshua, that Anthony Joshua needed to not rematch Andy Ruiz so that you could get to the Deontay Wilder fight? Because that's what everybody wanted to see. You know, that was a fight that was also when it was a fight that could have taken place in the United States with a Mexican world champion and a black American world champion. It had all the dynamics necessary to be a huge fight. Anthony Joshua had also been beaten, and he had been beaten convincingly. Where's the outrage? Where's the big call? Where were the big calls for Deontay Wilder, Andy Ruiz? Just seems to me that, you know, a lot of people just want to get rid of Deontay Wilder, and maybe they will have the ability to get rid of Deontay Wilder. But after after he fights Tyson Fury and pulls up another $40 million to stick in that bank in Tuscaloosa, Alabama, which is something a lot of people said Deontay Wilder would never accomplish. So my hat's off to that guy. I wouldn't mind if he had taken a fight between for the rematch, but quite honestly, with the amount of time that people are going to have between now and when boxing starts, hey man, he might have all the time in the world to go talk to Buddy McGirt, get his fighting style right for Tyson Fury, but also continue to highlight the fact that, man, them gloves were not all the way on that dude's hand. Stop acting like they were. Anyway, it is what it is. You let me know what you think in the comment section. And with that, I'm out. Peace.